Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking the video out today. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. So before we dive into these topics, do me a favor, if you end up enjoying the video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like. And if you are new here to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button as well. Starting here with the first topic, Disney Plus has been relaunched on the PS5 with 4K HDR support. Coming from Push Square, they say the long-anticipated PS5 upgrade for Disney Plus has launched today, allowing subscribers to stream in 4K HDR quality at last. One of the bigger complaints when Sony's new-gen console launched was that the app for Disney's streaming service was technically running in PS4 backwards compatibility, limiting the quality of its output. A key part of our global expansion strategy is to meet consumers wherever they are, which is why we're excited to enhance both Disney Plus and Star Plus for PS5 users. The ability to support 4K HDR video streaming on the platform will also improve the viewing experience for fans. This is what the EVP of Product and Design for Disney Streaming had to say. So if you're somebody who's watching Disney Plus on PS5, you can now do so at a much higher quality. Moving to the next topic, PlayStation Stars officially launches today in North and South America. Coming from PlayStation Lifestyle, they say PlayStation Stars, the new loyalty program aimed at all PS5 and PS4 players, is launching in North and South America today, October 5th. Players in these regions can now join the free program through the PlayStation app on iOS and Android or through the PlayStation website, getting a digital collectible just for signing up. Players receive the Stargazer Telescope digital collectible just for joining PlayStation Stars today in North and South America. As well as this collectible, there are several other collectibles and point rewards on offer for players who complete the campaigns. So there you go. If you're somebody who's living in North or South America and you've been anticipating the PlayStation Stars loyalty program, you can now sign up for it. And this is just the beginning. These are the first few campaigns that they're doing, and obviously they're going to continue to update it and release more as we go forward, and they will also offer more rewards. So let me know if you're planning on signing up to the PlayStation Stars loyalty program. Next up, we're talking about a new PS5 system software update that was released. Coming from PlayStation Lifestyle, Sony rolled out PS5 system update 22.02, which is what I'll call it, nice and early this morning, and it does exactly what you expect, good old system performance improvement. However, as usual, players are likely to figure out what changed or improved in due course. The previous update, which released last month, was quite significant and added a number of new features, including game list, 1440p support, among other things. Continues by saying, in case you missed it, the PS5 was jailbroken last week, just about 2 years after the console launched, exploiting a vulnerability that had been known since the PS4 era. Although not a fully functioning jailbreak yet, hackers have made enough progress that it's only a matter of time before they accomplish what they've set out to do. It's unclear if this new system software update plugs the exploit, but considering how lax Sony has been when it comes to the WebKit vulnerability on the PS4, we'll be surprised if that's what the company just targeted. So it's hard to say if the timing of this new PS5 system update has anything to do with the recent news that the PS5 was somewhat jailbroken, not fully yet, but as the article points out, it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And so there you go. If you were wondering what the PS5 system update today does, it does what most updates do. It improves system performance. So nothing too significant there, but we'll have to kind of keep an eye on the whole PS5 being jailbroken situation and see what else happens there, because again, people are going to continue pursuing this probably more aggressively now that it's almost finished. So I'll keep you guys updated with that. Next up, we're talking about some good news, in my opinion, for PSVR 2. Apparently, Sony is looking to manufacture 2 million PSVR 2 units by March 2023. Coming from PlayStation Universe, they say, according to a report on Bloomberg, Sony Interactive Entertainment is looking to manufacture 2 million PSVR 2 units by March of 2023. Mass production of the new virtual reality headset started in September this year and has yet to be met by supply chain constraints. As noted by Wario64 on Twitter, the original PSVR took 8 months to sell 1 million units and doubled that figure in 14 months. 5 million units of PSVR 2 were sold by 2020. Sony is hoping that the ongoing PS5 shortage will be improved by early 2023, which is the release window for PSVR 2. As such, the format holder is hopeful that the new headset will give a boost to PS5 sales while also allowing PSVR 2 to perform solidly itself. And so this is actually really good news for PlayStation VR 2. There's obviously some concern that PSVR 2 might run into some issues when it comes to the supply, and we know that this is something that's been affecting the PS5 for quite some time now, although it seems to be getting a lot better. In fact, I just read online that apparently September saw a massive boost to PS5 availability, the best it's been in over a year, so a very good sign there. And if you're somebody who's hoping to get your hands on a PSVR 2 unit, the fact that they're striving for 2 million, you should have a good chance to do so, or a relatively good chance anyway. And I think this is also a good sign for VR itself, where clearly Sony has bigger expectations for how PSVR 2 is going to perform. Again, PSVR 1 sold about 5 million units by 2020. You have to imagine that VR 2 is going to surpass that in a shorter time frame. So hopefully we'll get some new information on VR 2. They've been pretty quiet with it so far, and we're getting closer and closer to launch, so I'll keep you guys updated with that. Now, the next few topics that we're going to be discussing revolve around PlayStation's Hermen Hulst, who is the head of PlayStation Studios, doing multiple interviews and revealing some really interesting and I think important things about Sony's current strategy with their studios and what they're aiming for when it comes to different platforms, as well as the different types of games they're making. Some of this stuff I think is to be expected and not necessarily surprising, but people are always interested in knowing what's going on with PlayStation, what is their current strategy. So if you are a PlayStation fan, this is something you definitely want to pay attention to, in my opinion. First up, we're talking about an interview he did with YouTuber Julian Chiez. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but in this interview, what Hermen Hulst revealed is that PlayStation's single-player games, their AAA single-player games, will take, at minimum, at least 1 year before they go to PC. Now, obviously, that's not him necessarily saying that every AAA single-player release will be on PC in just 1 year's time. It could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, but he's saying at minimum right now, apparently, for Sony, they're giving it at least 1 year to be out on the PlayStation console before they will consider releasing it on PC. But what he also revealed, and this shouldn't surprise anybody, is that the exception is for their live service games. Their live service games are confirmed to be launching day and date on both PlayStation consoles and PC. Considering the nature of live service games and what Sony's trying to achieve with them, that, again, was to be expected. We've talked about this multiple times. Maybe some people will be surprised to hear about that, but, it's something that I was fully anticipating. Now, a lot of people are maybe feeling a bit caught off guard by what Hermen Hulst said about them releasing some of their single-player games within 1 year on PC. I've said it a couple times at this point, and I feel as though it's certainly worth reiterating at this point. When it comes to Sony and their view on the PC platform, when it comes to PlayStation and PlayStation titles, they have fully embraced it as a place where PlayStation games will exist and they will be sold. And as the years go by, we are seeing Sony just lean more and more into that. And so even though Hermen Hulst is saying here that we're going to give it at least 1 year, okay, sure. You'll give it at least 1 year for maybe games like Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, maybe Spider-Man 2, but it would not surprise me, and frankly, I don't think it would surprise anybody at this point if a couple years from now, all of Sony's games are going day and date to PC. So if you're somebody who, doesn't like this, unfortunately, you have no choice but to just accept that this is what Sony is doing. And so I also want to add here that it's been kind of proven at this point that whether a game is released on PC from a platform holder or their console, it doesn't seem to dramatically affect what people choose to play on. For example, I think there are many people that when they heard Xbox was putting their games on the PC, they assumed that, well, no one's going to buy an Xbox console at this point. But we clearly see with this new generation, with the Series X and S console and every Xbox game being available day and date on PC, that millions upon millions of people are still buying Xbox consoles. I think the exact same thing would happen for PlayStation if they were to go day and date with all of their games. But, you know, that's just the way it is. If you want to play on console, play on console. If you want to play on PC, play on PC. But as of right now, there is still more incentive to go with the console. I see a lot of people talking about God of War Ragnarok, and yeah, it's true. If you want to play God of War Ragnarok day one when it launches, you either need a PS4 or a PS5. And with some other games coming up in the future, it's probably just going to be a PS5. But if you are willing to wait maybe a year and a half or so, you'll probably have access to that game on PC. But again, I would anticipate that at some point in time in the future, Sony's just going to go all in with day and date on PC. So at this point, I would love to know your thoughts about what Hermen Hulst is saying here. Are you surprised to hear this for their single player games? And how do you feel about the confirmation that every live service game will be launching day and date on PC? Next up, we have what is, in my opinion, the most important thing to focus on with Hermen Hulst's recent interviews, and that is him talking about single player games and how Sony views them. So there were two instances where we heard Hermen Hulst talk about single player games and how the fact that they are diversifying by, making some live service games and trying out different things, that it's not coming at the expense of their single player games. So first, it was again with the YouTuber that did the interview. And in that interview, Hermen basically expressed how the reason why they're not going to stop doing it, that being making single player games, is because they know that's what the fans expect and that's what the fans want. And he also went on to say that they love making those games. Now, obviously, that's something that people could kind of turn to and be like, well, okay, Hermen, it's easy for you to say this now. Maybe this is just PR speak. But the second time he mentioned it was when he did an interview with Axios, and this is what he was quoted with saying. Quote, "We have a history and a reputation for building these incredible narrative-driven single-player games, such as The Last of Us and Horizon and the upcoming God of War Ragnarok. Some of our biggest titles in the single-player narrative-driven space are also our most profitable titles." End quote. Now, the reason why I wanted to really focus on this quote specifically is because this is what people should be looking to. Obviously, when it comes to executives within companies, what they're saying changes all the time, and you can't really take their word for it. But one thing we can take their word on, because it's not really something that they can make up, it's an objective fact, is if you look at Sony, their most profitable games are their AAA single-player titles. And while they're trying to find success with live service games, and they could find huge financial success in live service games. In fact, if they have a really big hit live service game, it could make more money for them than any single player game ever could. Still, I've expressed this many times in the past, if you're worried for some reason about Sony deciding that they're not going to make big AAA games anymore and they're not going to invest in these games anymore, it makes zero sense for that to happen. This is Sony's bread and butter, and even if they have a really successful live service game, they are not going to leave money on the table, especially when the money is looking this good, right? With their big single player games, it's just like anything else. If there is a market that wants and demands those single player games and they're willing to pay for them, then Sony's going to keep creating them, and that's just the way it is. And so I wanted to make sure to cover this and talk about it because I think it's important not to highlight what Hermen is saying specifically, because that changes all the time, but the fact that he's pointing to the most important thing, and that is there's a massive market that is willing to pay for single player quality AAA single player experiences, and that market is not shrinking and it's not going anywhere. So there's no way Sony's ever going to abandon that or leave that on the table. I mean, even when you see companies like EA, where at one point in time they abandoned single player entirely, saying that no one cares about it, nobody wants it. Look at where they are now. They're coming back to it because they're completely wrong and they're literally leaving money on the table. So there you go. Felt the need to highlight that and emphasize it. But that does it for this video, guys. Be sure to let me know your thoughts about everything that we discussed here. I'll definitely be interested to see what you have to say. Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it or found it informative. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.